This is the After Party. Your hosts are the Great Order and No White Guilt. As for the crown winner of last week, there is no second place. There is only the crown winner, and the crown goes to Mr. Bloom and Tall Kevin, both gifting $10 a piece. Congratulations to the both of you, and thank you so very much. You may financially gift on Entropy at a cost of 15% to you, which is up and running at the moment, where you can, as I say, watch the stream there and ask and vote on questions as well as financially gift. You may also financially gift on Cash App, and you'll see the description. You'll see the link in the description below. Jared and I, as you all know, evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the After Party. Today, we have two magnificent heroes, Tim Murdock and Semiogogue, on tap. Welcome, gentlemen. Let me bring you both into the... looks like Semiogogue may have stepped away. Bring you both in. Please tell our esteemed gathering where the folks can find you and what you work on, what you will be working on. And we will begin with Tim as he is here. And then once we have a Semiogogue, we will get his info and we will pass it over to the great, the one and only Jared George to take us into this magnificent conversation today. Tim, the mic is yours.
I'm Tim Murdock. I run White Rabbit Radio, of all things. And I live stream a few days a week, definitely Tuesdays and Saturdays, 5:30 on Tuesdays, and Saturdays, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on DLive. It's dlive.tv/White Rabbit Radio. And you can also find me at whiterabbitradio.net and Eurorabbit on Twitter. And what do we talk about? We talk about usually everything going on. Historically, I'm known for various different memes and animations, but these days we talk about the current shenanigans, all the goings on in the white world.
Fantastic, brother. Semiogogue, if you can hear me now, please tell the good folks who you are if they don't know you, and what you work on and where they can find you. And then, as I say, Mr. George is going to take us into the conversation today.
Sounds good, gentlemen. Sorry to arrive a little bit late. I am Semiogogue. You can find me on BitChute and on YouTube. Channel name Semiogogue in a safer space. You can follow me on Twitter. You can do it on Telegram. You can do it on Gab. You can do it on Parler. By gum, you can do it anywhere.
Birds do it, bees do it, da-da-da-da-da-dee do it, let's do it. Let's fall in love. You just reminded me of that, Oliver. Not that I want to fall in love with you, but I love you both, Tim and Oliver, platonically. But it's great to have you both back on. If anyone is not aware, both of these gentlemen have been on several times. In fact, this is not the first time, even that they are on tap together. They both give some pretty interesting, broad yet deep perspectives on things, and that's why we wanted to start 2021 with a bang. They actually were both on back in March, I believe, if memory serves, when COVID and the lockdowns were first hitting, and we got some interesting perspectives on that. I think the name of that tap episode is It's Always War. A lot of stuff about geopolitics, China. So Tim actually, maybe this will become a running thing. Tim actually was our first show last year.
Oh,
2020.
yeah.
I don't know if we should be scared or not. With the
I'm privileged. I'm privileged. It may be a case of white privilege for once.
Wow.
I don't know.
It's actually documented. So he introduced our 2020, and now he's back along with Semiogogue to introduce our 2021. We're very excited for you all to be here. This is the first tap of 2021, and in about 6 weeks, we will be celebrating, if you can believe it, 3 years of the After Party. Jason and I are very excited and honored to be doing this together and with all of you, and we're going to plan something a lot of fun for late February for that. Just a couple of caveats, especially for those of you on YouTube. Please be aware of what you type. I don't think I have to tell anyone, given the current state of affairs. We do want there to be healthy dialogue and discussion, but please, before you type something, think about the health of Jason's channel and putting it at unnecessary risk. Also for myself, there's all speculation going on. We state for Susan and our friends, as Semiogogue likes to say on his own streams, that Joe Biden is definitely the president, and everything that you have to learn from about the world, please refer to YouTube and their affiliates. But I will quickly say from my own perspective, la 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 la, I don't quite la 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 believe anything la 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 until I see someone la 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 in the white la la house. So that's just how I feel. I know some people probably don't feel that way, but that's okay. We're here to just mull over the different perspectives. So I'm sure both of you great minds and friends of ours have perspectives where you have overlap and some where you have your differences. So Oliver, why don't we just start a couple minutes with you, and then we'll hear the same response from Tim. I know this is kind of a big ask, but if you could just set the table where you think we are right now as we broadcast at a little after 6 Eastern on Friday, January 8th, 2021. And also, I'll just quickly say to both of you as well, different members of our community here, I guess, are caught up to different details or have been following this to different degrees. So if you quickly mention a situation or a personality, maybe just quickly explain who that person is, like, oh, this person's Trump's lawyer or something like that, because not everyone might know every single name and every single detail. But having said that, Oliver, if you could just please set the table, where do you think we sit as of right now? I think you're muted, my friend.
Resolve, sorry. Where are we right now? I'm waiting for the "you are here" diagram that is something other than like standing in front of a double-barreled shotgun, metaphorically speaking, in Minecraft. You understand me?
Minecraft. Everything tonight's in Minecraft.
Right. It looks awful in terms of Trump's current prospects. And as most of you probably know, certainly a lot of the people who are currently watching, I am somebody who has, as they say, held the line for quite some time. And I haven't been shy about saying that I think his prospects are not just good, but almost certain. So now we're in a situation where that does not seem to be the case. I will not, for my part, rule him out at present, simply because, as you said, la 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 la, it's not over until la 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 la, it's over. That said, well, let's start with what looks bad, right? So we can sort of.
Yeah, why does it look bad? Because again, from my own perspective, Trump's statement yesterday was not a la 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 con la 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 session la la la.
Right. No, indeed it wasn't. And there were actually 3 of those that came through yesterday. The first was in the very early hours of the morning, around 4 a.m. Yesterday. There was first a statement basically saying that there will be a smooth transition, very, very the same sort of ambiguous stuff. And you would find that there was a pairing going on where whenever there was something that could be taken as, let's say, concession-ish, it would be paired with something along the lines of, I don't feel that the election was done right. He hammered on the election thing again. And then there was a second statement that came out in a very brief, rushed press conference with Kayleigh McEnany, where basically the same kind of thing was said. We're working to ensure a smooth transition. And then came Trump's rather odd video. I'm not saying it's odd because I think it's a deep fake or something. It was odd because, again, it was very, very ambiguous. You would have, complaint about the situation with the election and then follow up with saying that, they're working towards a smooth transition. And then today he's had a couple of tweets. One of them was, let's see here. I had them queued up. My apologies. One of them is the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America First, and Make America Great Again will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. And then there was another one that says, to all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. So that's the three statements that came from yesterday, two from today. They all seem highly ambiguous, but it slowly starts to look less ambiguous when you're talking about, not appearing for the inauguration on the 20th. Well, presumably, if he's coming back into into office again, there will have to be some kind of inauguration. And if he's not going to be there for it, I mean, presuming that it might be his, then there's a problem there in terms of doling out the doses of what people like to call copium, or hopium. And there's also a statement that came from General Flynn late this afternoon. He's since been removed from Twitter. He said, America fought a good fight. Our great country is resilient, and we will get through this difficult time. Acting responsibly at this moment is what all Americans must do. During the past 4 tough years, I found faith, family, and true friends were my foundation. God bless America, etc. So these are statements from Trump and from Trump proxies that look like they're throwing in the towel. Perhaps that's not fair. Perhaps they're just saying that it's a fait accompli and it's done. So these are the kinds of things, along with the growing hysteria from the press and everything else, that suggest that this is over. It's the dice were thrown up in the air, and they came down unfavorably. Against that, there is this simple fact, and I'll probably turn this over to you guys here. There's more I could say, but I want to allow everybody to sort of get the discussion going and to hear the other points of view. Against that, there is the reality, which is this guy is sitting on an arsenal of things, and they've been available to him for so long that it has caused many, certainly myself, I won't speak for anybody else, but I've been scratching my head for, let's not say the full 4 years, but for 3.5 years now, and it's attested on my channel, that he has not pulled the levers on the many things he has. You can talk about Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Imran Awan and, House of Representatives, IT systems and strangeness going off to Pakistan. You can talk about the whole business with Julian Assange, which has been waiting in the background, and maybe tie that to Seth Rich and the rest. You can, there's the FISA issues, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. There's the Russiagate stuff. There's a Durham investigation going on in the background, and there are more I could list. I'm just going to stop there, but there are many, and they are significant, and we're seeing a few more kind of poke through.
Yeah. Quick question: do you think there's any legitimacy to this news that there's this evidence in Italy about something with the machines, raging machines?
That's the Leonardo satellite. Yeah, this is all speculation, and you should everyone who is watching should refer to mainstream media sources. So I'm absolutely speculating. Your mileage may vary. Don't take this sheer speculation. But sorry, Jared, what were you going to say?
But just to clarify for the listeners, the counting. No, not that it was Italy, guys. Not that it was Italy interfering, but that certain information was sent to sources in Italy, and now that that's been recovered, there's also we could talk about the whole business of what exactly happened at the Capitol on Wednesday, and it could have been a double false flag, and it could have been both sides wanted that to happen, but then using certain aspects of it for their own advantage. I don't think that, personally, I just think it's ridiculous to think that those people just overwhelm the forces there, but we could talk about that as well. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I think that the business with the Capitol is something we can touch on. I'm sure Tim's going to have a lot to say about that. Just to wrap the business of what's going on in Italy, as you had asked earlier, that we provide context. Again, this is all speculation. None of it is confirmed. But the basic story is that there is a satellite called Leonardo, and it is run by the Italian government, or I should say it was put up by the Italian government. However, the Vatican has access to it, so the claim goes, and that they have discovered and that it was used in some fashion in the transmission of election information on election night and the following morning. And there is, so it is said, a person who has obtained, there is someone who worked for the Italian intelligence services who was involved directly with it, who has now provided a sworn affidavit. Now, none of this is confirmed. Again, the person who apparently broke the story did so on December 4th. I can't remember her name now at present, but she has her own website and stuff. Maybe Tim knows and can throw it in. But basically, that woman broke it on the 4th, and there was an audio recording going around that in which she is probably doing a Zoom call or something, some sort of group conference call, and she's discussing what she found out about it, saying that she offered to Trump on Christmas Eve that she had affidavits that would be turned over and that would go well for him. And as I was listening, Marla Maple or Marple or whatever her damn name is, one of Trump's former wives, did come in on the call and was talking with this woman as well. So as odd and out there as it sounds, there is at least some suggestion that the woman who is running the conference call and claims to have broken this information does have contacts with the Trump family. So, make of that what you will in terms of corroboration. So that's the story. And it has appeared a little bit in the past, like today I saw something about how Sidney Powell has been booted off of Twitter, and it had something to do with showing a video, which she called a CIA video that came out of Italy that's related to this same thing. But that's kind of where that stands at the moment, unconfirmed. And yeah.
Let me jump in really quickly and just say everything that we are talking about here is reportage on what others have reported. So those things are indisputable, that we are reporting on what others have reported, not on the veracity of other people or the evidence that other people might have. We are reporting on what others have said, rather than on the claims that they have made or the veracity, etc. And so just want to make sure that that is clear, because as long as we are reporting on what others have said rather than on the claims, on the truth or falsity of what they claimed, then we are not in violation of any of YouTube's policies.
And Biden is the president-elect.
That's right.
Yes, and for anyone that doesn't know, Jason was actually in attendance on Wednesday, so you can maybe mention some things about that. But Tim, our other guest, you've been waiting patiently. Anything to say in regards to what Oliver said, and also just your general opening statement about how you think things sit at this moment?
Well, let's look at the view from 10,000 feet. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Sound great.
And here's what we know to be true, and this is pretty much indisputable. You have a group of elites that are trying to transition their implicit global empire into something explicit. And they're doing it through a variety of different gambits and acts, if you will, and using particular energy flows out there to do this. The first one we saw, of course, was COVID and the big shutdowns and everything else, which is still ongoing. Then you have Black Lives Matter. And then you have all this talk of the Great Reset. And in the meantime, the virus is being used for a variety of different things, various different social engineering schemes and whatnot. And I'm not saying the virus isn't real. YouTube would not allow that, and I wouldn't dare do that. I know it is a real virus, but it is obviously being used for things politically. And in the midst of that, you have a president that the establishment does not like. Every element of the establishment will tell you they don't like him. It's pretty obvious. And then, of course, you have all the talk of the Great Reset. I mean, you really have a group of elite that, in studying them, they plan decades and decades ahead to get things done. You know, there are these long-term planners. At the same time, they step up and tell you with their reset plan that we're going to change how the world's going to work from 2020 to 2022. It's pretty extraordinary for a group of long-term planners. So they're in an execution phase, and they can't have Trump in there, and they weren't going to have Trump in there. They were going to do whatever it takes to get him out of there. He wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. Accidentally got elected, stumbled onto populism. You can look at it a variety of different ways. Now, Trump probably has various different cards, knows all kinds of different things. But Trump doesn't look like he's out to save anybody but his own skin, his close friends, advisors, and family. That's it. That's all it looks like to me. I mean, I can't see anything else. I think he's gone. He's gone. In this type of ordeal, now when Trump did not get reelected or the election came into question, the selection came into question, he did a variety of different things, military related. And those are still ongoing, Department of Defense related. The most extraordinary was he activated President Kennedy's National Security Action Memorandum. I think it was in 1971. That's the number of it, which basically removes the CIA from the oversight of covert operations and places those operations directly under the military. Now, this is a matter of public record. The military went on and on about it and why they were doing it. But this didn't get a lot of press. You didn't hear it on Fox News or CNN that much. The president did this or someone around him did this. And then you have this moving around of all kinds of defense officials. Now, basically, this would have read like a riot act to the CIA. This is what Kennedy was trying to put in place with the CIA to castrate them. And since then, they've grown like Leviathan. So he actually did that or someone around him did that, which is pretty clever stuff. It's also an act of war against them. So my thinking was that they were going to do whatever possible to keep him in. Now, typically in something like this, what we saw the other day, and before I get to what we saw the other day, and going over to Italy, Pope Francis, basically, this goes to the whole entire thing of the elites are going to change how everything works on the planet. This whole ideal they have. Pope Francis basically issued a law. This is, of course, Italy, reorganizing Vatican finances, which are a big deal, actually, in banking. Now, he basically moved the Vatican Bank from the Secretary of State, normally headed by an archbishop or a cardinal bishop, to the administration of patrimony of the Apostolic See. In other words, placing the bank directly for the first time in its whole entire history under the Pope directly. And so we got a lot of consolidation and centralization among these elites and these elite institutions right now. Trump was in their way. And so they got rid of him. And the only way they could, through an election or a selection. Now, I'm guessing Trump does have all kinds of stuff, but he's going to use it to save himself, save his family. I would have respect for him, actually, if he pardoned all those people there and kept them from all this and crazy stuff that they're going to have to go through. But I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see any of these things happening. I don't see him staying in there. I think he's gone. I think he's done. I don't know. I mean, his speech yesterday, there's a lot of people reading into it. I don't read cryptography or anything like that. So I'm just going to, he just basically sold them out. He threw them underneath the bus. Everyone knows they weren't terrorists. They weren't there if they were there to burn down the Capitol will be burning. And another thing, I mean, if you're making all these military moves, you're shuffling all this stuff around, you have the NSAM from Kennedy era, yet you activate, you got the balls to do that, or whoever did that. And you give a speech like you did yesterday, I mean, he very easily could have taken the Capitol. He could have done his own color revolution. Crazy as that sounds, I mean, that's typically the way this type of thing happens. If you're going to do it, you would have done it. He gave the speech or vitriol, but he's relying on Pence, and Pence's establishment always was establishment. He's not someone you're going to rely on to overturn the establishment. And so, I mean, the only thing you're going to do in this situation is tell these people, let's take the Capitol, and take the Capitol, which they could have easily done. They could have easily done if he had the military support, or if he had the wherewithal or the balls or the gall to do it. But leading up to that, he was doing a lot of different military type things, shuffling parties around here or there, doing the thing with Kennedy's NSAM. I mean, but that never happened. That never occurred. So you're left here with a guy, you got all his supporters screwed because he told them to march on the Capitol. You didn't tell them to go in. They were invited in. It's from some pictures, it looks like they invited in. Some broke windows. I don't know who broke windows. Could have been Antifa. Could have been instigators. There's obviously enough angry white people there that anything could have happened. And it's probably the largest white working class insurrection we've ever seen. That was an almost insurrection where people are staying on the carpets and walking in between. There's this hilarious picture of Statuary Hall. I think it's called Statuary Hall, where they got all the monuments and everything. Jason would know. And these protesters are walking in, and they're walking in between the velvet ropes. They don't want to go to either side of the velvet ropes. So these people are all playing by the rules, except maybe a couple that ransacked Pelosi's office or whatever. But it's just, it's really sad. It's really sad. And to me, it looks like.
Are we to believe it was that easy to walk into Pelosi's office?
What's that?
Are we to believe that it was that easy for members of the public to just walk into Nancy Pelosi's office?
Well, here's the thing. They probably didn't expect them to do that. So, yes, if you're committed and you want to break windows, you want to crawl through windows, you want to go open doors, you want to do things like that. It's a notorious place that's not as well guarded as people think. Now it will be going forward. It's a joke of defense to anyone that talks about it historically from the Secret Services and whatnot. But I assume that there's going to be all kinds of shenanigans that come out. And apparently they did get into Nancy Pelosi's office. And now they're going to go to jail for a long, long time. I don't know that anyone tell them that once you go once you cross certain lines, you better make sure you have a president and a military behind you and everything else, because you're in a Ukraine type of situation. You're in a battle for life or death. They're going to throw you in jail if they catch you or hit you with sedition. Or these guys aren't playing games. I mean, they didn't exactly take over the people's house, but they did take over the oligarchy's house, and the oligarchy was not happy. I do think that they wanted accidents to occur. I'm guessing this is kind of like Charlottesville, where I I'm being cynical. The elites probably wanted someone to get hurt so they could hit people with a bunch of lawsuits. They probably want lawlessness so they can embarrass Trump. And the most you have is people walking around Congress and stupidly breaking windows, trespassing. I'm just interested to see what all charges they hit some of these guys with. It's going to be sad. But again, from my perspective, Trump threw them all under the bus yesterday. I mean, everyone knows they're not you're not dealing with Antifa burning down city after city after city. Plus, they shot that woman. They fired a live round. I mean, when is the last time we saw a protest from the left where they were firing live rounds at people? Now, granted, the left never took over Congress.
Well, you had crowds of leftists packed into the
federal courts.
Or into the Capitol when they were dealing with the Kavanaugh hearings.
That's true. That's true. Even Hollywood celebrities
and shouting, and they were packed in cheek by jowl. So yeah, that sort of thing has happened many times. I think there's certainly there are a lot of people who take the view that you do, and I am also, I'm on a knife's edge myself. We could call this a postmortem of Trump's career, but we could also just as easily call this a postmortem of mine as an online commentator, because I have I've backed the whole thing with Trump for quite some time. So if basically Biden gets sworn in, I'm going to make the rounds and publicly eat crow, because that is only proper. But I would say that in terms of Trump, I don't think it's how do I say this? I'm not a Christian, but there is something that Christians have, and it's called faith. And I don't mean to be all dramatic about it. I'm saying I myself am not a Christian, but it's a very interesting thing when everyone rolls through. And I'm certainly not imputing this to you, Tim. This is just sort of a view of what I've seen, particularly in the battleground space of Twitter. People roll in and they talk about how there's, if I mention that there's some possibility that this could still pull up out of a nosedive or whatever, it's, cries of copium and hopium and all the rest. And it seems to me faithless in the sense that there is some hope. Trump is absolutely a flawed character. I don't have to tell any of you that. There are all kinds of issues with the guy, but I think it is fair to say that given the alternatives that are available, this guy is sort of the last best hope that was available at present. A lot of people like to say, we don't need heroes, we need a movement, we need to do it ourselves. Trump can't save us. Absolutely true. But the thing is that you need to be able to work with elite figures and people who play a sort of focusing role, gathering the attention of everyone else, as well as having that movement in the background too. And so when and I get this a lot, and again, I'm absolutely not coming after you about it, Tim, but I'm rolling off of Twitter where I get hammered constantly about it. Trump has crapped on the people who supported him, and now he just wants to save himself. And I'm like thinking to myself,
I think after Charlottesville, I was actually impressed how he equivocated and moved around his words and stuff like that. I was actually pretty impressed by that after Charlottesville, because I thought he would cuck on it. I thought he would just cave on us, and he didn't do that right away at all after Charlottesville. But yesterday, I got the feeling that he basically, you have people that he pushed to the Capitol, and now granted, we don't know what happened there. I don't know exactly how it unfolded, how they got in. It looks like they stormed barricades. There were definitely a lot of angry white people.
They also opened a number of them for him too.
Sure. For whatever reason, they were dumb enough to walk in, or just naive enough. I shouldn't say dumb.
Or had some Judas goats leading them too. That's possible.
That's. I'm sure we're getting into all of the above. I'm guessing it's all going to come out. There's going to be Antifa there. There's going to be all kinds of different seedy characters there, but doesn't matter because all those poor people are going to jail if they catch them. But what I think people do miss about Trump is whatever defense elements are around him that he put in place, they're going to be there for a while longer. Whatever he had going on in space is going to be there. Whatever they had going on in space is going to be there. I don't know what the end result is. I'm going to assume he's going to leave office and everything else. The only way I would see anything around that is in some type of disaster or some type of giant war, which the war porn is blazing out of Israel. Israel was bombing Damascus when the whole thing was bombing outside of Damascus when the whole thing was happening. And Semiogogue will always be around as a geopolitical commentator. The Trump thing, it's easy to look at the particular circumstances and make this call or that call, and you can always be wrong on the future. No one knows the future, but we live in strange times, and he is an outlier character. I just don't see any way, simply because I don't see the man having the desire to do what's necessary to stay there. That's what it looks like to me. He needs help around him, and he's never had help. I mean, who would he get hired to replace even Jarvanka? He definitely needs to throw them out and replace some of these people, but who can he get? I mean, Spencer can't go in there. I mean, I'm thinking of all the people from back in time that backed him, who he could have got. He couldn't have, you'd have to pull in someone, and then he's going to have to go against all his benefactors. It's just one big.
We have seen AIPAC dumped him very publicly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, it looks rough for him, and I'm not saying. I mean,
he's Roy Cohn's. He's Roy Cohn's boy, so he's going to have the goods. He's going to have enough goods to be able to pull his own tail out of the fire. What he should do is step up and pardon all those protesters.
Yeah, and that may well be something that he can do. I would certainly be for that. Now, I will say that, this is something I had wanted to touch on earlier, with people hammering on Trump, because I had a tweet about that earlier that he saw some people saying that he threw his folks under the bus. He didn't ask them to, violently roll into the Capitol, and that happened. Now,
no, he did not. He did not. But the speech was the type of speech. I mean, we read history books, and there's plenty of situations out here like this. That's the speech you want to give before you say let's roll and right. Send them to the Capitol and let's pull our version of a Bolshevik style uprising. Let's get them out of there. That's the type of. I mean, he gave. What do you think's going to happen when you give a speech like that with that many? I mean, there was a ton of people there, and he had to know that the FBI who hates them, the CIA, all these groups are going to be camped out there, and who knows how many other intelligence agencies.
Absolutely.
I'm sure every intelligence agency in the world, everything I read, they're all laughing like, wait a minute, this is a paper tiger. You can just walk in and push over Congress. They could have taken Congress. They could have pulled a Ukraine easily.
Yeah,
if they had the military backing,
there is now. I am not endorsing this. I'm not saying that it's true.
No, we're not. We're talking about like in PUBG or something. We're talking about like theoretical stuff,
right? But including the stuff, the kind of chatter that's going around. Again, not endorsing it. But there is talk of how laptops were taken. Now, this is
Pelosi's, but I don't.
Pelosi's is one that people mention. We certainly have photographs of people that appear to be, I mean, ostensibly are photographs taken by people who are sitting in her office with photographs of her screen. Now, that's what we're told it is on Twitter. That doesn't mean that it is. But there are a number of laptops that are said to have been taken. And there is certainly one congressman who has come out into the public and said, yes, my laptop was taken. So it's not just crazy talk out on the fringes. One person has said, yeah.
Oh, you're saying that a foreign intelligence may have walked in there and grabbed a laptop?
I'm not saying anything, but other people.
Well, it could. It could. I mean, why not?
Other people have presented the idea that and again, I am not endorsing it. This is just, to throw another thing on the plate for the varieties of consideration. At this point, I am approaching pressing the eject button on Trump's prospects. I simply am not there yet, simply because until Biden is inaugurated, there is a space of time. But
I need to ask you about that in a moment after you're done with this.
Well, I'll make this short then. There is just basically the statement that Trump gathered that crowd. Why? Directed it towards the Capitol. Why? And then certainly there's some people who are busting windows, as Tim said, but there are other spots where you see video.
Yeah, that's an anomaly. That's an anomaly. I mean, if there's tens of thousands of people that were by and large peaceful, walking around with flags and everything else. There was, there is some vandalism. There is some moving around of papers, but we really don't have that kind of wholesale destruction,
No, but we do have in some cases where it looks like they were forcing their way in. There are other cases where there's unequivocal footage now. I mean, I've seen it. It's clear. And more than one of these.
Letting them in various different doors?
Yes. And look, this is the reality. That's the Capitol. If you'd gone there 6 years ago and someone fired a gunshot, that thing would be locked down. I want to say a minute, but let's be like give them the biggest window possible. They'd have it locked down within 2 minutes, no doubt. I mean, they do drills for this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have enormous bronze doors that they can lock.
Their own police force.
Yes. Now, you could say that, it's a big building, et cetera, and that's true. And there are a lot of people. That's true. So I'm not making any claims.
I mean, I think you have a case also. They might not have. You might have whole elements in this that really were hesitant about, Trump's out of office. He's leaving. This is his last hurrah. So, we're not really going to get into it. We're going to try to avoid conflict with some of these parties. You know what I mean?
And it's also possible that someone called down and said, let them in. When you talk about police forces allowing the people to come forward and approach the building, one of the first rushes was at a barrier that was some distance out. And what's odd is that a lot of this footage is coming from people like Ford Fisher, who made a name for himself, providing footage and testimony about James Fields Jr. So there's some interesting things, and there are people like Baked Alaska, who was also at Charlottesville. There's some interesting things about the people who enter there. But the point I want to get across, because I know Jared had a question, was simply that there are people who assert that this was, again, sheer speculation, not even endorsing it, that people rushed into the building to provide cover for operatives to obtain the laptops of these legislators. And there is
the idea is, who were they talking to as they're about to go into this certification of the vote? Are they communicating with media? Are they communicating with foreign agents?
Or whomever, yeah. And presumably, I mean, I would have to guess that the most secure machines that they could rely upon to do whatever they were doing, if indeed they were doing anything, would be the ones issued to them by the government that they could, kind of plug the gaps with. The only thing that I will say, there is one clip. There's a woman whose channel, she's kind of, sort of the fringy Q type people. Not that I myself am not fringy, but Ann Vandersteel, she's got a channel. If you look at hers last night about it's time for civic duty or something, at about the 10-minute mark, there's footage that was captured inside the building during the time period when all the people were in the Capitol. And there's a group of guys coming down the stairs, and they're pretty tightly buttoned up. They've got shades on to hide their eyes, and they've got face masks of the sort that you would expect, the little surgical masks. So essentially, you can't see their faces at all. It's hard to say that they look like they're military when there's so many LARPy kind of guys with plate carriers and stuff on and all that sort of thing. But they look like they're more serious, and they're coming down a staircase, and there are a whole bunch of people shouting that they're up to something nefarious, and they come rolling out, and one of them very clearly, you can watch the clip again on the Ann Vandersteel channel or whatever, at the 10-minute mark-ish, last clip that's up, something about civic duty. They've got a bunch of stuff hidden up under their jackets that, now, I'm not saying that this supports it at all. It simply could be looters. People who wanted to get in there to loot could have a face mask on and glasses on their face. But that is something to think about. That's the story about the laptops.
There's going to be an endless number of speculations, but I think Trump was just suspended permanently off Twitter, by the way.
Yes, that's exactly what I was just going to.
We're seeing that
right there. And it says here on Twitter, after close review of recent tweets from the @real Donald Trump account and the context around them, we have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement of violence. So that's something that is absolutely, without question, just took place. Everything else that we're talking about here for AI, our big sister AI, and everybody else who's watching, Susan and the rest, these are reportage on claims, sharing that there are claims made by other people, sharing that videos were shared by other people. Whether or not those things were real or not is up to Twitter and YouTube and Snopes and CNN to tell us are real. So make sure you get your final advice and determination and interpretation from those entities. And otherwise, we are here to entertain. So, Jared, please go ahead.
Okay. Actually, what we just heard about Trump on Twitter is a decent segue into what I want to ask Oliver. Oliver, I want to take a step back for a moment. We're 48 hours roughly from when things were starting to even out on Wednesday, all these events at the Capitol. From what I know, I can't speak for you, but you'll certainly have a platform to give your whole explanation in a moment. From what I know, your perspective is that for all kinds of reasons, both legal and also public perception, because this would have to be tried in public in a sense, that if there were a lot more going on than meets the eye, and if Trump had more allies than we are aware of, he would have to go to the final precipice where everything looks hopeless. And there's no one who can wiggle out and say, well, we would have done it a different way if we had more time. It has to look like it's done and dusted. Again, all I'm saying is this is the perspective that I took from you, summing up all the details. So we're only 48 hours after this event right now, even with what's going on with Twitter and the news that was just shared about Twitter. You could say that he now has precedence to go to the military and look at the emergency broadcast system to communicate directly with the American people. Because for most of American history, we didn't have Twitter. Obviously, he is still the president of the United States. The president of the United States is not going to be hamstrung just by a social media company. That's just an example of what I'm saying, one of many, many, many that we can cite. Oliver also did a stream on M.Law. Someone just mentioned in the chat. You don't have to come out. This isn't how it works. Go listen to Oliver's stream if you want the full explication of this. No one comes out and says, hey, it's now M.Law time. That's not how it works. Oliver, if you could maybe refrain from giving the whole thing there, I'll just endorse you by saying, go listen to Oliver's stream if you want details on this. But there are times when you could have been living under that level of law and not even known it. People don't come out, presidents don't come out and say, hey, everybody, guess what? It's M.Law time. So I know I'm speaking vaguely. There's only so many things I can say without making this go on and on and on and on. But Oliver, why? It seems a little early to me that you would be thinking that your perspective is one that you might have to, in your own words, and I agree with Tim, you're going to be around, your perspectives are extremely valuable. you have a nimble mind on a lot of subjects. No one wants to see Semiogogue go anywhere, no matter what happens. So let me just also reiterate what Tim said with that. But I don't quite even understand why you would be saying this yet, that you are reconsidering your perspectives and eating crow and all that. Aren't we just now freshly into the exact phase that you've been waiting for? Isn't it really now and the next 10 days or so that everything that you've been talking about would be happening?
Well, yeah, but not exactly the next 10 days, because for anything to be to have
Well, 10 to 5 days, whatever. Don't hang your head on the 10 days. But I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just want to point out that it does matter, because in order for this to work out, like I'm not a believer at present in the idea that, for example, Biden could come into office on the 20th and Trump could have dropped a torpedo in the water that will detonate later, and that will all be sorted out later. The nature of the resistance against him is so overwhelming that if the people who have clearly shown that they don't have any hesitation about doing anything necessary to maintain their power, it's not like they're going to be like, oh, well, I guess you caught me. That's not going to happen. So I tend to think that the 20th is, there are scenarios in which he could have some sort of Parthian shot, and there, something could happen after the fact. But I tend to think that if he doesn't come in for a second term on the 20th, then it's over. And
my question is asked with that assumption. I mean, 10 days is still the 18th.
But you have to understand that in order for him to come in, and I'm not done yet. I haven't basically written off the possibilities, as somebody pointed out quite properly, quoting Sun Tzu. In war, it's all about deception, and you have to seem to be something that you're not. And I'll get to that in just a second. But I want to clarify the point about the time frame, because there's going to have to be time for this to get pushed back, for example, to state legislatures or some other similar arrangement. And we've just seen how gutless the national legislature is. There has to be some framework for people to, quote unquote, right what is wrong, which means there's a window within which, and it's a very narrow one now, and I don't see a whole lot of daylight poking through. But again, I have not dismissed the possibility of it. I'm just being realistic. And for most people, they're going to say that I'm not being realistic enough. The bottom line is that he has to have some sort of big reveal that, quote unquote, shocks the conscience of the nation. And then it's going to have to happen with enough time for it to get kicked back to the state legislatures for them to do something with it, or some other function, for example, the Supreme Court or whatever. But I mean, we've just seen how that went when he tried to roll stuff up to the Supreme Court. It still remains possible, and I'm going to reserve my ritual public humiliation for the moment when Biden goes into office, and I will happily, I'll go ahead and say now, I will invite people at that point who take issue with me, who've been cracking at me all this time. They can come in, and I will say, you were right and I was wrong. Thank you, sir. May I have another? And I will do it publicly on Twitter. Until that happens, Biden comes into office, I'm keeping an open mind, but there is a limited time frame. And here's the last part I wanted to throw in. I've since started watching Vox Day, who didn't shape my opinions at the outset. I developed mine independently with Tim. People who followed the channel will know this, but Vox Day has a metaphor.
Not this Tim, another
Yes,
Tim
sorry.
Oliver does shows with.
The other Tim, equally formidable relative to the Tim we have present. Vox Day uses the metaphor of double enveloping, and the idea that the center appears to collapse, and that it draws, and it's a good metaphor, and that it draws the enemy in as it appears to collapse, etc. And then they get swept around and they're absolutely contained. There still is time for that. It's a very limited window. It would involve some pretty dramatic events, but at the same time, it is necessary for me to face, and leaving all that aside, I still hold out hope until Biden's inauguration, because the guy is sitting on an arsenal, as I said. However, at a certain point, the appearance of the center collapsing in order to create a double envelopment, you have to face the fact that no, maybe the center just collapsed. So I hold out the possibility simply because it's Trump's ass on the line. Tim had mentioned maybe he's doing some behind the scenes negotiation to have a sort of dead man switch of his own. And I think that's a perfectly viable hypothesis. but I also think that that you're dealing with an ego with Trump that may well lead him to do everything from taking actions sufficient to pull up out of this nosedive. I wouldn't just say that I'm inclining that way now, but I still very much think it's possible. But it may roll over to, for example, something further down the line, like dropping a torpedo in the water that will detonate later. There are many possibilities here, but it is still possible to be president, but the window for it is closing. Sorry.
You could say that he basically in the past, I mean, what he did in Georgia and whatnot, that maybe he was trying to destroy the Republican Party, the Republican establishment. You could see it that way. I don't know.
Oliver, don't you also think that a lot of the ego and bluster, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I've watched some of your recent streams on this. Don't you think that some of that was rope-a-dope and he plays a lot dumber than he really is, and that all of these Achilles heels of his, like his ego, that's actually exaggerated publicly to make the enemy think that he's more vulnerable than he is? I'm just trying to clarify. Isn't that your perspective? And it does. Yeah. From what I know from you, I can't speak for you, but it just seems a little early. I know there's a certain limited time frame. I get that, but I feel like we're 48 hours after the events at the Capitol. I would think that right now,
5 day rule, right?
And early in the next week, this is the time. I'm just trying to suss out what is it that, because I know that we're not all just totally 100% trusting on surface level of these different stories we see in the mainstream news of what's shaken your confidence.
The simple fact that it's come down to he has flat out said, for example, I will not be there at the inauguration. He's flat out got, Mike Pompeo just sent out some tweets that were all about how horrible and these are people, mind you, Flynn and Pompeo are people who I would consider, unlike Pence, the most stalwart of the allies that Trump has had. Pompeo came out saying, it was terrible what happened at the Capitol, and the fact that I don't want to bother pulling it up now. So if anybody wants to, they can go and see what it is directly for themselves. But basically, he said, people are calling the United States a banana republic, and no, we're not a banana republic, because in a banana republic, what happens is the mob comes in and forces its will. But what happened here is Congress came in and was seated after the mob was pushed back out, and they arrived at the certification and the rest. So in order for me, and I will say distinctly, it is still possible. I am not quote unquote conceding.
Yeah, just to clarify for anybody, I guess again, I'm not speaking for myself, just trying to take in what I've gleaned. I don't know if you appreciate this or not, but as a thoughtful, hopefully, member of your audience, right, that this is actually exactly what I would expect. Yes. Gaming out your theory. I'd expect us to be here right now, and I'd expect there to be deception. And with the whole Inauguration Day thing, it's who knows what that even means? It could just be an out-and-out lie. It could be, he's going to be sworn in digitally from a different location. I mean, who knows? I'm not trying to deal the copium. I'm not trying to. I'm just saying, from your audience perspective, how it hits someone in your audience, that I would expect that this is exactly what I would be expecting if your game theory was correct. I would expect to be here right now.
Sure. And it would be deception is supreme in war. Absolutely. However, you have to balance the idea that you've got a nation that is waiting in the wings, that is when you make major public announcements of that sort, and you have to, if, for example, you were going to, like Tim was talking about, you were saying you could just take the damn Capitol, right? There better be, there's a lot I don't know, but there better be a damn good reason if you're going to make public statements that that seem to be entirely contradicted by something that happens later. And I could ride the train of Trump using strategic ambiguity, but when people who are very close to him are coming out and pulling up stakes, that's a different matter. Again, now I am not saying, Jared, that Trump can't pull this out. I believe he can. But I think also, and this is my own process of digestion, right? To figure out if I've got a framework for consideration and it does not fit circumstances. Yes, it still could be pulled out, but I also have to be like alert to the fact that maybe I got this crap wrong. I don't think I did. I'm on the knife's edge and I won't concede yet, but the possibility that I'm absolutely wrong. I mean, the other thing that you have to consider is that the enemy gets a vote. Also, just bad things can happen, and the best laid plans of mice and men can be, attacked from the inside. So I still think it's possible he can pull this out. Absolutely, I'll say it. I'm not, quote unquote conceding. Not that it matters what I think anyway, but in terms of, me fessing up to the public and saying I got it wrong, that's a possibility. It's also possible.
I think for him to pull it out, if he was going to do it any type of standard way, in any type of other than two possibilities, it would have already been done already. There would only be two possibilities in my mind. They are slim possibilities. There's a gigantic war between now and then, and they go COG, continuity of government, which is supposedly already in operation, and we end up with two presidents, because it almost seems like for the past month or so, we've had like two presidents in two separate countries. So they could be doing something. I mean, we're talking outliers. We're talking crazy stuff that I don't think it's probable, but that anything's possible in the history of the world. So anything's possible in the future, something like that. We do have a giant ramp up in the Middle East right now. I'm watching the news roll out of B-52 sent in, and Trump was supposedly pulling out an aircraft carrier, but it never did. It only backed out of so many miles. So who knows what happens between now and the 20th, but it would have to be something pretty wild to keep this guy in there. And the fact that in my mind, he conceded. Now, some people parse his words all the time and go all Q on me, but I just seems like to me he conceded, and I'm just unbiased. I'm objective here. I mean, this guy's
but then why is Pelosi right now, to the minute of us broadcasting right now, talking about if he doesn't resign, we're going to have to proceed with impeachment?
I think she's just being a bitch.
Right, or as somebody pointed out on Twitter, and it was actually.
But you could say that. Okay, he's not. They want him to resign because he's going to be there permanently if he doesn't. I mean, I hope that's true, but I mean, you just got to look at reality. If you're going to go big, you're going big. The latest date in my mind is with that speech he gave January 6th. It's let's go, and then the fireworks go off or whatever happens. Unless we're dealing with some kind of COG, continuity of government, something we don't freaking see, we got to say that this guy's gone. Unless there's something amazing, and I look for amazing. I look for outliers, something that's incredibly one-off, which was his election probably to begin with. And I don't know. I think
nor does anyone, nor do I. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Tim. Go on.
No, that's okay. I mean, the speculation is no end, but we have to look at right now, reality in the 12 days as of right now, he's going to be stepping aside. He's going to be leaving because that's what he just said. Now, the idea that he's just saying this to lead them into a trap at the final moment, we're getting really to the final moment, though. We're getting really past. I mean, after the election, okay. A couple of weeks after the election, anything can happen. But now when you're down to this point and all his loyal followers are going to jail, and we're gonna have to see. I'm interested to see what happens to like the baked Alaska, who after Charlottesville, he was on all these videos crying about online hate.
Yeah, I don't tend to believe him. Well, let me put a hat on coming from the other direction, for the benefit of for Jared's benefit and my own, coming at it from the opposite direction.
And for the record, I hope Semiogogue is 100% right, and this is crazy and wild. I just hope it.
Not as much as I do, man. Believe me. But coming at it from the other direction, let's look at it like this. First off, in terms of it being something big that would be a reveal, it's always had to be in order to punch through all the various forms of resistance. There is absolutely no way that he would be able to pull up out of this following the events of the election, which I am not contesting, and I am not asserting that there was any fraud, right? Joe Biden is the president-elect. But the reality is that for him to pull up out of that, he would need a big reveal. And in fact, since the events of the election, I've talked to a number of friends, of mine, and we've sort of gamed it out in a variety of ways. And there's just the only way that it's coming out is that he's got to have something that is so good that everybody's just going to have to eat it. Like it's his, whatever it is that he has on them is going to have to be so good that they don't have to like it. And the fact is that if we're going to look at the span of things that he might have in order to make that happen, I mean, I left out of the list before with Assange and Seth Rich and FISA and Durham investigations and all these other deals. I left out Epstein, because we do know that a large amount of material was seized from his various homes. And we know. What do we know? But we have heard from various sources that all kinds of digital records were seized. So there are all kinds of interesting ways that could go. If I had to guess about any person on the planet who is likely as a single individual to have access to some dirt that could hurt people, Trump is very likely that person. Now,
definitely from Roy Cohn. He knows how the game's played. He knows all these particular blackmail games. He
saw how McCarthy was smashed and destroyed in the first place. To your point, he knows how they play.
There's some wild connections between the Trump family and all the stuff going around in space and the Monmouth diaries, or the Monmouth, whatever it was that Roy Cohn and McCarthy had. That's supposedly what they got so much heat over. But there's all this speculation, but I would say that whatever he has, he's using it to save his own skin and his family. That's the only thing that's important to him.
Yeah, but now could he save his own skin and his family by saving the country as well?
In theory, but I mean, I'd like to believe that, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't know how he could save himself without also doing this monumental shift that would affect the whole country too.
Well, he's a billionaire. I mean, I agree with you that that's another way it could go, Jared, for sure. I just brought it up. But the bottom line is that, like, billionaires, in conversation with other billionaires, they can work out gentlemen's agreements and be more or less left alone. Now, I tend to think that wouldn't happen. Look what happened to the Kennedy family. As soon as any one of them who isn't properly, leashed gets near any subject, he ends up, they end up 6 feet under. So I don't know. I think he can still pull it out, but the window is very, very sharply closed. And like they're little details, right? Because I'm reviewing all my stuff because, yes, this is the period where it could work out. But if I'm realistic with myself, I also have to review and make sure that I'm not just, a true believer. One of the weird things is when, what's his name? Well, first off, when AIPAC dumped him, that's significant. Because one of the things that I've long thought is that he is relying in large part upon support from foreign intelligence agencies because he does not have the full support of his own, right? And there's a certain number of tools and support that you need in order to make that happen. But first thing that happens is Netanyahu comes out and accepts Biden. Then you get AIPAC dumping him, right? You've also got another weird thing, which is Julian Assange coming. Julian Assange, what am I saying? Nigel Farage comes along and suddenly is talking all kinds of crazy talk in Britain about how he thinks Tony Blair should be appointed as a part of a special commission to deal with vaccinations and stuff, which is just like crazy talk. And now that might just be the self-preservation instinct of somebody like Farage, who's not read in on all these things, right? But when you start to look at them in groups, it appears that people are distancing themselves from him. And then when you get remarks from Flynn saying it's over, and you get things like Pompeo saying, just sort of, bland, don't be violent, our country is holding together talk, there is still a window. I still believe it is possible that Trump can hammer it. And believe me, like Tim's saying, I will cheer to the skies. I mean, he is, flawed as he is our last best hope for, the guy explicitly describes nation states as something desirable. What's not to like, right? There are all kinds of problems with it, but, compared to the alternatives, especially the alternatives we're seeing now, he definitely has been our last best hope, and maybe he can pull up out of it. I'm not going to publicly ritually humiliate myself until Biden takes office, as I've said. But man, right now it looks bad.
Yeah,
That
I
it
mean,
does. Go ahead, Tim. Please continue.
I mean, he basically has been totally banned off social media, and this was a problem early on of all his supporters getting banned. And he, Tucker Carlson's asking him, why don't you do something about that? And he never really had an answer. I noticed Tucker distancing himself from Trump as soon as they started. Sidney Powell went all cracking and stuff like that. But again, I don't see any big reveal saving him. You would have to do a big reveal and then have a lot of force. You're going to
let me throw this at you, Tim. Tell me what you think. As I see it, and everybody tell me what you think. Here's the bottom line. I don't want to be too black-pilled about this, but if this is allowed to go down, what has occurred? And I'm not saying anything has occurred. Refer to your official, news sources for your information. And Joe Biden is the president-elect, and all of this is speculation. But if what just happened goes down, I mean, I've seen 3 clips in the last day and a half. One of Romney a little bit before this all really cracked open big time, where he was caught in an airport by a Trump supporter who was kind of laying into him and capturing it on video. I saw another one with some sort of politician who I couldn't see beneath the mask, but it was another legislator, either a representative or a senator. And then today you saw, I think it was at Reagan Airport, but I'm not sure, but you saw Lindsey Graham being harangued and harassed, surrounded by police to protect him. And you had a whole group of people that was much larger calling him a traitor and following him around. We're going to be seeing more of that. And we also have 80 million. Well, let's go officially. Sorry, I don't want to dispute anything about our election data. We have 74 plus million people who have sort of had their eyes opened to what's going on here. What do you do with that? What do you do with the fact that there are all sorts of people seeing everyone get taken down? What do you do with the fact that you've got all these speeches about how there's just one circulating on Twitter now about how we've left the 9/11 era and we've entered the era of the burning of the Reich. I'm sorry, the raiding of the Capitol. What do you do with the fact that it does seem that our nation has fallen? Now, I'm not saying it has. Your mileage may vary, and I'm certainly not calling for insurrection or violence or anything of the sort. But let's just imagine for a moment, it's easy for a lot of the black pill people, and that's kind of what I was touching on earlier when I mentioned, faithlessness. If you've got a group of people who never basically put their money down on the table for a given person, it's very easy for them to say, it was all fixed in the beginning, and you can never do anything because they're all liars and everything is manipulated by people in the background. We just had our chance to basically come up out of the well that we have arguably been deep within for the last 10 years or more, very likely much longer. And now it appears that we're not coming up out of it. And it looks like this is going to be sealed. And it's not just going to be sealed in a miserable way for the United States. This is going to have follow-on effects, echoing across the world. That's why people, like a lot of people, for whatever accident or fate, there are a lot of channels and things that I follow that come out of Britain. So I talk to a lot of those people. Like it's the old joke, America sneezes, the world catches a cold or whatever. I mean, this is bad. So if there ever is going to be a situation where someone would pull out the dramatic, whatever it is, where someone really is willing to throw down, and it's not just about Trump. That's another thing that I have an issue with. And I'll shut up in a second. But this last piece, everybody thinks it's about Trump does this, does that. Trump wouldn't have gotten in office unless he had significant backing from important people. Now, I've speculated about it. I don't know who they are. I tend to think that a lot of them are old manufacturing family dynasties, because they're the ones who sort of played ball with the Chinese for a while, and now the Chinese are doing an end run on them. And basically, they don't have to like it anymore. They don't have to negotiate with the Chinese. They have enough power and money and the rest, right? However that may be, it's not just Trump, and he has a number of backers. And, there are a lot of people who say that, the United States has been taken over for a long time. Well, maybe. But maybe there's a group of people who are watching the watchers. Maybe. And I have to say this, if there is ever any time where those people would come out, that's now. So, I'm sorry, on the one end, you got Tim on one side saying, doesn't look good. I agree, doesn't look good. Jared's on the other side saying, it's a knife edge right now. And I'm really in the middle. It could be black and evil and screwed up as all get out. But on the other hand, if someone is going to pull a lever, I mean, can anybody say that now is not the time?
Yeah, it's definitely, as we can tell, ladies and gentlemen, an extremely tense period, a very historic period in American and therefore world history. And there are a lot of things going on. And we certainly have been hearing about a number of different possibilities. And certainly all of these possibilities, all of these outcomes are going to have a direct impact on every single one of our lives. Surely if the anti-whites, the really radical anti-whites who call themselves Democrats, have their way to do whatever they like. Now, just to a couple of things very briefly, I will say that we had some questions about what charges would be filed. Well, right now, against those who were at the Capitol, and right now they are talking about sedition, and you're looking at a sentence of around 20 years plus, and if found guilty for that. But it's not only those who went into the Capitol building. The Democrats are also talking about filing sedition charges against all of the Republicans who objected to electoral college votes, and even suggesting that their staffs should be subjected to the same prosecution and charging of sedition. Now, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and we can thank Carlisle for this. Thank you, sweet sister. They are, and this is in the news, and she sent me a link. They are pressuring Pence to, under the 25th Amendment, to demand the removal of President Trump. And according to what I just read here, he can do so with a majority of the executive officers, or he can do so with a body specifically created by Congress for the purpose of doing so. And if he won't do it, Nancy and Chuck are talking about using Congress, and in which case they would need the votes in Congress. It would be a higher bar to try to cross than to have Pence and executive officers or a body designated by Congress to assist Pence in that process. Now, what are they afraid of? Well, there's a lot of intrigue, of course. We have been talking over the course of the past hour and 14 minutes about, we're nearing, also, I think, nearing the end of the after party today. And it's been an absolutely an amazing show with these wonderful gentlemen and hearing their insights, especially at this time of great upheaval and trepidation for all Americans and everyone involved, and certainly those who have spoken out either tangentially or directly in favor of Donald Trump and the policies that emanated therefrom. Certainly, while you have Democrats who are and other names that they call themselves, but we know them obviously for what they are, which is anti-whites, calling for lists and having made lists and talking about hunting people down who are a threat, and they are referring to these people who marched, everyone who was present, as insurrectionists, and the verbiage is chosen on purpose so that when they go to court, should these cases go to court, certain charges can be filed and punishments doled out.
Aren't those military tribunals?
For insurrection?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that would be for a civilian, it would be subject to civilian courts without martial law. And that is what, between now and the 20th, Trump can do at any moment. That is the law of the land. It's the easiest way for him to put an end to everything that's taking place in the United States right now. And it has been done numerous times. A lot of people think that martial law hasn't been used before, when in fact, I think the most recent time was in the 1960s. And it is usually has usually been more narrowly used. In this case, it would have to be more broadly used. It would take a great amount of courage to implement it for Trump, because you would be entering into some ambiguous territory by doing so. But nonetheless, he has the ability to put an end to this election by using martial law and ordering a new election to take place, and perhaps ordering something like a new election overseen by the military would be something that maybe the top brass, which he might have to get rid of, would have a problem with. But maybe some of those a little bit lower down, who would then be quickly elevated to the positions and the rank they would need to hold to be able to carry out the orders. Perhaps they then would be willing to administer martial law for a period of a new election observed by the military, rather than going through all of these court cases and things of this nature. Nancy and Chuck are very aware of Trump's power to be able to do that. That's why they would like to very quickly get him to resign or have him removed by way of the 25th Amendment. Now, we have some financial gifts that we have to get to, and I think some questions are in there. Let me jump over to Entropy. If you do have any questions or financial gifts that you would like to give, please do so now, because we are getting closer to the time to tap out of this very significant show of the year 2021, already set to be something of a roller coaster. And having been present for the totality of the rally, who knows what will end up happening to yours truly and even anyone who participated. But we will weather whatever comes, and we will continue to press forward for White Wellbeing no matter what. We have TJ financially gifting $10 over here on Entropy. Thank you so much. And writes, have a good continuation of the year, White Positive Sphere. Well, thank you so much for that. Well put. And $10 to White Wellbeing. The great Tall Kevin over here with $7. Thank you, dear brother. Writes, any thoughts on what can help keep us motivated and go in a positive direction for all of us in our personal lives? I strongly recommend to all here, take care of yourselves physically. Don't despair and harm yourself with drugs, alcohol. It's what they want. And we can start with Tim and get your any thoughts you might have for Tall Kevin, and then we'll jump over to Semiogogue and get his thoughts.
Thoughts regarding
staying healthy.
Staying healthy.
What can you do for yourself to stay motivated and moving in a positive direction?
I think diet's probably the main thing. I just stay moving, try to do some exercise every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Try to get outside.
Yeah, I can't say much about that with my monitor, Dan. Right, but yeah, absolutely. Exercise is balm. You have to burn all the cortisol and these other things associated with stress that build up in your muscles. You have to burn it out, or you are not going to rest. I mean, actually, I'm suffering from it now, so I'm not taking my own advice. The other thing is make sure you get as much sleep as you can. Absolutely. And things like hot baths, sauna, if you can get your hands on it, anything that will heat and allow you to sweat out toxins and get rest and exercise. The other thing is to know that you're not alone, and to keep your chin up, keep your eyes level. It is just a black pill mess. I see Jared looking at me going, wow, Oliver, you're saying that this could go bad? Yeah, man, it could. And I could be completely wrong. The most difficult, because there are a lot of people who come from Tim's perspective saying that it's possible, like I'm saying, but also it looks bad. It could go down. You have to have you have to have a little bit of faith. Otherwise you go into the darkness of the black pill. You are not alone. And if in fact he goes down, as a lot of people have said, Trump can't save you. We'll see what happens next. Stick together. Be aware you're not alone. Do not gobble the black pills. Do not allow yourself to be utterly demoralized.
The Democrats are going to be doing a lot of funny fighting because, they're going to have such thin margins, and a lot of those people are going to be worried about getting reelected if they do something crazy. So yeah. They're going to be held back, even kind of like, does Biden really want Pelosi to mess with the 25th Amendment because he might be next? Who knows how much infighting is going on with the Democrats? Because trust me, they're getting ready to fight more than anything anyone's ever seen, because there's never been a group in the history of the world, as I know it, in one political party that is so different than certain elements in the Democratic Party. They're from different planets, basically. Now, they might just get along right now because they won, but it's these tight margins. It's going to be ugly stuff.
Yeah, we're not alone, and the enemy is not as unified as it, or let us not say the enemy, forgive me. Our fellow countrymen who are of another party, who hold different views, they are not as united as they appear to be. And we can be more supportive of one another in our own ranks. And again, recognize you're not alone, and let's keep our eyes on the prize, chin up, eyes forward.
Jared, did you want to throw anything into...
All great perspectives, stuff that Jason and I speak about often here. We've done shows exclusively on health, but it's woven into often things that we talk about. I would just quickly add, no matter what happens, always keep your own agency. I always talk about that. Even in the best case scenario, don't put your own agency outside of yourself when you don't need to. That something else, someone else will save you. We all have to take responsibility for our own lives. There's a tremendous power in that. Even if things happen that are wildly positive and blow our minds over the next 2 months, you are still the sovereign. You're still the king or queen of your own life. And I would also add, to whatever extent you can, a creative outlet. Creative outlet is wonderful for your mental, spiritual, physical health.
Precisely. Very well said. The fear, which is the primary thing that most people are going to be feeling as a consequence of this, especially with all of the threats that the anti-whites have been able to make, and witnessing over the past 4 years, and certainly over the past year, anti-whites able to commit any crimes they want and given license to commit those crimes and walk away from them without punishment. That engenders a lot of fear. Fear is an emotion you have to act upon, and you can act upon it by advocating for white well-being, going for yourself, treating yourself with for your mean pathogens, and getting out into the world and making a difference. You can make a difference. You can't reinstall the president, but you can get everybody in your life, or as many as are receptive, you can help them to go free. And by doing so, empower them and empower our community, so that in the future, you have 500,000 plus people show up somewhere, all of a single mind with a single tongue and a single purpose, and there's nothing that can stop that. Let me jump over to Heidi. Great to see you here, dear lady. Let's get a big round of raucous emojis applauding for our sweet sister Heidi, who just financially gifted $50 $50. Thank you so much, Heidi. She writes, "Good evening to everyone. Stay strong and keep heart." Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Words of encouragement. We also have the great Irish Ice, an absolutely implacable gentleman for white well-being, out every day, blanketing his city with his eyeballs, finding leaflets in every corner he goes, and having conversations at every bus stop, and on buses, and in different terminals, and bringing folks over to Going Free. A great champion, financially gifting $5. Writes here, I'm getting so good at defeating the most rabid anti-whites in public. Waiting in a line recently, a non-white approached me after witnessing me psychologically crushing a nasty anti-white gal, and told me he agreed with everything I said and to keep it up. Thank you so much, Irish Ice. Hey, folks, this is not Bravo Sierra. He has videotaped himself and sent some of these to me. He does engage. He uses the lexicon and dialectics from Going Free. He's not making anything up on his own. He uses what works. He doesn't think that he knows better than success, then videotapes conversations with strangers and destroys them where they disagree, where they want to be anti-white. We've had Nate do that as well, going out making videos. It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Irish Ice, for sharing that with us. And again, something that's important there to note is that non-white people who are not anti-white don't object to white well-being. That is an extremely important element of Going Free. Matthew here, Financially Gifts, $10. Thank you so much, Matthew. And writes, glad to support you guys. Thanks. I hope you guys are on the receiving end and get to feel the economic stimulus. Well, I don't know about how much economic stimulus. If you're talking about the government, or we don't know, we're probably on the bad end. We'll find out what they're going to do with us. But I appreciate the $10. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Maybe he just means the super chat.
That's what. Yeah, I was thinking $10, and we appreciate it greatly, Matthew. Now we have XIO. Let's get a big raucous round of emojis again. Break them out of your pockets, folks, or wherever you might keep them. And XIO OIX, financially gifting $50 as well. 50. Thank you so very much, Tim. What was the meteor that fell in China? China, the work, wasn't it the work of the All-Father? Tim, was it the meteor that fell in China, the work of the All-Father? To you, Tim.
Asking me?
Yes.
Of course. Who else could have been?
Okay. Very good. There you have your answer. And thank you so much for that very kind financial gift of $50. Tall Kevin back over here, and then I'm going to swivel over to have a look at Cash App, getting closer to tapping out. It's been a wonderful after party with you all today. We're going to keep our spirits up no matter what happens during the course of this January, no matter how good or ugly it might get. We're going to have each other. And for example, we just had Way of the World, it looks like, just popped in. Great to see you, dear brother. We're going to have each other, and we're going to continue to support each other. We're going to continue to go free together. We're going to continue to serve white well-being. This is the one thing, remember, we've talked about for a very long time. This is the one area where when the anti-whites, I said, once they had enough power, they would make their greatest mistake, and that would be the mistake of attempting to criminalize white well-being. That is what would wake up the totality of the Western world. Yesterday, when I was having conversations with white people out there, I easily talked about it being because we're white, and not a single person disagreed. In fact, one of them was on video. You all saw, because she came up and began a conversation with me while I was live streaming. So if the anti-whites go to move and do something like we have created the scenario for them to trip up on, then the victory will be ours. We need to continue to move in this direction. So wonderful folks here today. We'll have this Tall Kevin, financially gifting $3. Says, thanks, guys. That helps a lot. Semiogogue, Jerry Garcia called. He wants his psychedelic wall decoration back. Go and get one like Tim has, he suggests. Thanks, Kevin.
Well, I think Tim's is actually his own artwork. Is that yours, Tim? Did you make that yourself?
It was actually a piece of artwork that was going to be made into a disaster wordplay for Charles Kraft, and he actually ended up passing away before I could call him to finally get that done. My mother had died, and it got everything, all our art projects and everything else went kind of on a back burner while I straightened out everything. But then he ended up passing away. So yeah, it is a piece of art. It's an original piece of art done by one of our artists.
Yeah, mine's just antique embroidery from Central Asia. So, your mileage may vary.
There you go. We have Sismic77, financially gifting $25. Thank you so very much. And writing, I am a Polish person in America, and says his wife is Chinese. And he writes, we both want America to be white again. Well, thank you so very much. And you and your wife, of course, you lovely people. We are glad you are here with us in service to white well-being and going free. And this is the community where you can do so. And we appreciate your wife and her commitment to white well-being, just as I'm sure she has appreciated the Western kind reaching out and helping her people over the many generations that we can look back in time. I think, who was a Greek American says, I missed his comment. I don't see it here yet, but I'll take a look in the background too. There was a financial gift from you that didn't pop up. Back again with another $50. Break out the Raugus emojis. And the great Laurel is here, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful to see you, sweet woman. XIOOYX, $50 more financial gift to white well-being. And he writes simply, thank you, Tim. So I think you brought him great pleasure with the All-Father question. Slots, financially gifting $5 as well. Thanks again, XIO. Slots, another great champion, always in the trenches in service to white well-being, writes here, and by the trenches, we're talking about Twitter and Gab and all of these different places to have these discussions and advance white well-being. Slots writes, if we have the will, there is, if we have the will, there is nothing. You know the truth. We have decamillions knowing the truth. Call out the regime as anti-white. Call out the traitors. Amen to that. Thank you so much, brother. He's another one who you can observe his victories using the lexicon and dialectics of going free in Twitter thread after Twitter thread. So if you want any evidence of the success of it, just go have a look and see what it feels like when you get to be the moral champion in a conversation that influences all of the readers in your favor instead of looking like the bad guy in the anti-white narrative. I'm going to swivel around to Cash App, and we have a financial gift of $10 from I Love Jesus Christ. Thank you so much, sweet lady. $10 financial gift, and she writes here, simply and beautifully, for white well-being. Thank you so much. I love Jesus Christ. And then, I see your emojis are already out. If you have a hope chest at the end of your bed, pop it open and break out some more of them, because the magnificent champion of service to white well-being, going free, Blue-Eyed Bear, has financially gifted $100 to white well-being. $100. Thank you so much, your brother.
Thank you. This is an incredible way to open the year.
Yes, it is indeed. And he writes, a brilliant discussion between brilliant men. Thank you. Well, we appreciate that, and we deeply appreciate your service to white well-being in all the forms that it takes. And we will continue to expect to see you doing wonderful things, brother, as you have already demonstrated over the past year. Another great champion. I'm seeing so many names of folks come up who are making a difference in the world, and that's why they're here. We're going to be able to come together as a united front, a united family, irrespective of what the anti-whites aim to do toward us. And make no mistake, it will be, as I have shared before in the past, and as I do this, talking to you and also doing something in the background to see if I can find the missing financial gift. Make no mistake that, as I have said before, as the anti-whites apply pressure to this community, a community in this metaphor of graphite, we get diamonds. That's what will erupt from the pressure placed on us. And this contagion of health and well-being will spread from one brother vague to sister vague, and there'll be no stopping it. Nobody was resisting what I had to share with them yesterday. And as I said, it was 500,000, it felt, and higher. Now I'm looking back here and I'm just having I don't see your financial gift, brother, in the background. Perhaps it hasn't come up. Did you get a denial? But I'll keep an eye out for it as we get our final thoughts. Well, we also have another moment before we move toward the very final comments, and that's XIO. has decided to get you all to break out raucous emojis again. Applause and smiles and kazoos and whatever else, horns that you have. 50 more US dollars. And he writes here, for White Wellbeing. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate that. Very meaningful. And it is a magnificent way to start the year, a real statement to the anti-whites that we are not about to fold simply because you are saying the things you're saying, control the anti-white narrative the way that you do. Nothing has changed for us here. There are a lot of thoughts that I have, and I, as is normal when it comes to the after party, yield as much time as possible to our magnificent guests. We always pick the best. And that's why we have these two gentlemen here for you all today. And we had a great conversation as a consequence. I will share more of my particular views on Sunday when we have plenty of time. And I can just continue to talk to my heart's content until there's no more time left. But and as I say that now, XIO has just financially gifted, ladies and gentlemen, an additional $50. That's $200 by XIO. Take another 50. Please give. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Another $50 to White Wellbeing. And thank you so very much. It has a little emoji of it. What is that? Is that a blackbird? Is that a crow? Is that a raven? I'm not sure, but I should figure out what your emoji is when you are commanding this much respect in the financial widget on Entropy. Why don't we go ahead and I will look for the missing financial gift that may or may not be here. And thank you all for applauding and breaking out the raucous emojis, because we need to continue to acknowledge each other and our contributions, no matter what they might be, whether it's somebody who can assist by way of just bringing their sister over to Going Free, or somebody who can do like the great Elaine Sabatino, who, Jared, I must tell you, if you aren't aware, I have to brag about this lady because I have not seen somebody so fecund. It is amazing how many pieces of White Wellbeing and Go Free paintings on stickers, on rocks, on, it's amazing. It's just like this endless creation. It's all beautiful. And now we have the idea of combining this sort of ornamentation, things that are local and meaningful to people. When you are leafleting, when you are spreading the good word of White Wellbeing, it is having a tremendous effect. And so we're very grateful to all of you. But no matter what you're doing for in service to White Wellbeing, financially gifting $1, financially gifting the kind of sums we've seen here today, making videos, clipping out videos. We've had so many new people come to service to White Wellbeing because of videos clipped right out of some of those long 8-10 hour Going Free streams, clipped out of the after party streams, and then shared. Of course, HB 2014, one of the truest champions when it comes to that sort of thing, but a great many new folks who have taken up the charge of doing so. Sloth's even making a video of how he does it so that others could learn from that and make their own clips. And so a great big thank you to everyone who is participating in service in any way they can, because that's what's really going to sustain us and enable us to recapture our destiny as we move forward, whether the waters are most turbulent or whether they are fairly placid over the next 4 years. So a big thank you to everybody. A big thank you to everybody who participated in the live chat and financially gifted over the course of the stream. You all mean so very much to every single one of us, especially as the times do seem to be getting a bit darker. Let's jump on over to Tim and get, Tim, your final thoughts on anything that I said, on the conversation in total, anything that you have that you'd like to share about work you're doing, work that's coming up. And of course, please, again, very clearly enunciate where people can find you in the work that you're doing, because we want people to come to you in Semiogogue and Jared George, your sites, your channels on the different platforms you are on. We need to get the word out as quickly as we can, as long as we can. Tim, the mic is yours.
I'm at dlive.tv/White Rabbit Radio, also whiterabbitradio.net, several times a week for free shows, paid shows, everything in between. I am actually having on Semiogogue. I'm looking at the calendar. I will be live streaming tomorrow night on D Live 5 p.m. with Ayatollah out of the UK, actually. But Semiogogue will be on the 23rd of January, and I'm going to assume that Trump's going to be on a golf course somewhere with it. He is on. Semiogogue's on my show, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll take it up at the time. But it's 23rd January, so if you guys tune on in, because we got a lot of stuff going on. And what's going on in America is really a microcosm of what's going on in the planet. And you got to remember, besides having just a few enemies, most of the people of America as an enemy, the elites actually have a whole entire planet. And so there's a lot of stuff going on out there, and we have to continuously look for things that are going to go out of the box, and eventually something will jump up, and various different things will happen. And usually when outliers happen, they go in our direction. So hold the faith and just call them anti-white if you don't know any other name to call them, because it always fits.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it indeed, right? Yeah.
Indeed.
I was gonna. You beat me to it, Tim. Definitely. For folks who follow me, come on over and check it out on the 23rd of this month. Not far out. Tim and I are going to be speaking, and Tim and I will be speaking. This will definitely be interesting, because when we scheduled it, I was like, man, this is when it's going to come down to the wire. We will definitely get to talk at that point, I should imagine, about what actually transpired and how it all went. So tune in, because I may be coughing up black feathers. I may be at the same time, drinking that last little bit of 1972 brandy I got squirreled away. So we shall see. For closing thoughts, other than thanking both Jared and Jason for very kindly having me on, I do want to reiterate the business of you not being alone. It's very easy at this point to just drink, bottles full of ink. It's just, there's black pills on all sides. So try to stay focused and recognize there might be a light at the end of the tunnel that is not an oncoming train. And otherwise, the only last little thing I'd throw in there is, just as a matter of prudence, I'm not suggesting that there's going to be any violent social upheaval and the rest, and I'm not trying to go full-on prepper on you. But I would say that for the next little period of time, do make sure that whenever you get down to 3/4 of a tank of gas, you go to the gas station and fill it up to keep it full. Because if you decide there's somewhere you don't want to be, and you don't have enough gas in your car to get away from there, and you think that you're going to go to the gas station and everybody else has had that same idea and there's a line around the block, or maybe there's just no gas at all, you're going to be in a bad position. So it's not about stockpiling ammunition, though I don't necessarily say people shouldn't do that also, but just to keep it straightforward, make sure you keep your gas tank gassed up, and make sure that you've got enough food and water in the house that if you needed to, you would not have to go outside to shop if you didn't want to, because all kinds of things could be going on. Again, very likely that nothing of the sort is going to come about, but it's always good to have options. So yeah, that's it for me. Come check out me speaking with Tim, Horace, the White Rabbit, on the 23rd. And thank you again to my host.
You are most welcome. Mr. George.
Well, we didn't even know about that you two are going to be talking on the 23rd. So hopefully today was a bit of a warm-up for that. Thank you both, as always, for your time and your thoughts, and for everyone's generosity today. Thank you for a strong opening to 2021, and I heartily endorse what Oliver said about knowing you're not alone. My site is thegreatorder.com. I'm easy. If you remember one thing with me, remember that. Everything I do and ways to contact and social media and all can be found that way. I'm working on the next song because I decided I wanted to be a musician when I grew up. So that's what's going on. I think most of you know that by now, but if not, yeah, I'm putting music out. And I'm releasing one song at a time. No albums right now, just about a song a month. So that's all fun and continuing. I'll quote my friend Eke Lux in saying, remember to floss. Jason.
Fantastic. Well, I have to thank you all. It's been truly magnificent, very interesting. And we had actually a lot of great commentary in the live chat as well, folks giving their part and what they know about the things that are happening. In fact, we broke news here during the course of the program, and we'll be doing that for the rest of the year as well, as best we can, irrespective of the tribulations that may come before us. But we have each other, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to continue moving together as we have over the past couple of years, and keep an eye on all of these gentlemen, and try to stay abreast, try to stay in touch with each other. I'm going to be back on Sunday with more information, some of my thoughts, and perhaps by then you'll see that we'll have some more information about what the Democrats, certainly the anti-whites who call themselves Democrats, are trying to do. It appears that latest info we have is that their design is to have Trump declared unfit and then move their way through every single Republican who objected to the electoral college votes and made arguments, and then move forward with the charges of sedition. You can imagine if that, of course, were to be able to take place, it would be sort of a runaway train. So stay close with each other, stay close to us, and we will bring you all of the most pertinent information relative to your literal safety in the coming months and potential years. We love you all, and we look forward to seeing you again next time on The After Party.